Welcome to another episode of Nexus, the podcast where we dive into the crossroads of technology, science, and, well, all the weird and wonderful mysteries shaping our future. Today, we're plunging headfirst into something that sounds straight out of a sci-fi thriller, really. Like Black Mirror took a field trip to a biology lab. We're talking about Wetware Robotics, specifically the groundbreaking work by Chinese researchers on creating robots controlled by lab-grown human brain tissue. This deep dive is based on a stack of fascinating sources, scientific articles, news reports, our own research notes, all focusing on the very latest developments as of mid-2024. Our mission, well, it's to unpack the core story here, understand the foundational tech, explore how it actually works, and, what these robots can do. We'll highlight the key achievements, discuss the truly mind-bending potential impacts, and, importantly, confront the significant ethical considerations that come with literally growing brains to power machines. Okay, let's unpack.
Yeah, and right off the bat, let's clear something up. The whole idea of like a full human brain in a robot.
Right, the classic sci-fi image.
Exactly. That's still firmly in the realm of fiction. What we're actually talking about here is, well, it's more subtle, but maybe just as mind-bending. It involves something called brain organoids.
Organoids. Okay, what are those exactly?
Think of them as tiny 3D clusters of brain-like tissue. They're grown in a lab, size-wise, maybe like a pea. They're derived from human stem cells, the pluripotent kind.
The ones that can become different cell types.
Precisely. And each little organoid contains around, say, 10,000 brain cells. What's really remarkable is how they get them to develop. They use stimulation, like low-intensity ultrasound, for instance.
Ultrasound on brain cells.
Yeah, it encourages them to form more complex neural connections to sort of mature. This stimulation lets them mimic some brain functions, processing signals, maybe even forming basic memories.
So that's the wet part of wetware, I guess.
Yeah.
Living tissue. But how do you connect that to a machine? How does that blend happen?
Great question. So getting that pea-sized brain, if you will, to control a robot, it's kind of a three-part system. First, you've got the brain organoids themselves, the living biological bit we just talked about.
Okay.
But obviously, they can't just, plug directly into a robot's USB port.
Huh, right.
So that's where the neural interface chip comes in. Think of it as a super advanced translator. It takes the biological signals from the organoid and encodes them into digital commands the robot understands.
Like a BCI, a brain-computer interface.
Exactly, but specifically designed for this organoid-robot link. And it works both ways. It sends sensory feedback from the robot back to the organoid, too.
So the organoid can sense what the robot is doing or touching?
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It receives that feedback as signals it can process. And then there's the third piece, the MetaBOC software. This is basically the operating system. It's an open-source platform, which is quite key. It manages the whole interaction, creating this continuous stimulation feedback loop. That's how the organoid learns and adapts.
A feedback loop, so it learns from experience.
That's the idea. It creates what they call a biosilicon hybrid or wetware system. You're literally blending the wet biological tissue with dry silicon hardware and software.
A machine that partly thinks with living biology. Wow.
And it's part of this larger push in biocomputing. The goal is maybe to find alternatives to traditional silicon chips, which are getting pretty power hungry.
That makes sense. It sounds a little bit like, wasn't there that Australian project, DishBrain, where brain cells learn to play Pong?
Yes, absolutely. DishBrain was definitely a significant step in that direction. A good comparison.
So what makes this work from the teams in China, Tianjin University, Southern University of Science and Technology? What makes it different?
Well, what the researchers themselves claim, and what our sources seem to back up, is that this is the first open-source brain-on-chip system designed for more complex interactions.
Open source, meaning others can build on it.
Exactly. It's not just about a simple game like Pong. It's aimed at letting robots interact with the physical world in a much more dynamic, learning way. Making the platform open source could really speed up research globally. Everyone gets to see the blueprint, so to speak.
Okay, so with this foundation, these tiny brain organoids wired up to robots, what are these robots actually doing? What kind of tasks show intelligence beyond, say, normal AI? This is where it gets really interesting.
Right, and they're already showing some pretty specific capabilities, things like obstacle avoidance and navigation. The organoid gets sensory input as electrical signals and processes it to tell the robot how to move around without bumping into things.
And it's adaptive, not just following a preset map.
That seems to be the key point. It's reacting in real time. Then there's grasping and manipulating objects. We've seen demos where the robots grip items, track them, even do something relatively complex like folding a T-shirt.
Folding a T-shirt. Okay, now I'm impressed.
Yeah.
A robot with a pea-sized biological brain component folds laundry.
It sounds mundane, but it shows fine motor control guided by the organoid processing feedback. It's not just rigid programming. It's adjusting on the fly, like a learn-as-you-go approach.
So it can do tasks, but what's the real difference here? Is it just task execution, or is there something more, like a deeper intelligence?
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Hmm.
The physical tasks are impressive demonstrators, but the real potential game changer is its capacity for learning and adaptation. Think about traditional AI. It needs massive amounts of data, usually static, for training.
Right, huge data sets.
This Wetware system is different. It sort of matures over time. It forms memories, strengthens connections based on that feedback loop. It's much more like how our own brains form synapses when we learn something new.
So it genuinely improves with experience.
Apparently so. One study even mentioned it showed basic human intelligence characteristics during training. And they're actively working on enhancing this, like using that ultrasound technique we mentioned earlier to boost organoid growth, make the internal neural networks more complex.
And the open source aspect helps push this forward faster.
Potentially, yes. Sharing findings, sharing the platform. It could accelerate things. There was one demo highlighted where the robot's limbs were controlled autonomously, purely by the organoid's signals, moving beyond just simple reactions.
That learning aspect is just...
Tactically.
Wow, okay, so if they learn on the fly like that, does that mean they're more efficient than traditional AI? Less energy needed?
That's definitely one of the big hopes and a recurring theme in the sources, this potential efficiency edge. They seem to learn faster in certain contexts and use significantly less energy than giant silicon-based AI models running in data centers.
Because biology is inherently pretty efficient.
You could say that. They adapt without needing those enormous training data sets. That could make them better suited for dynamic, unpredictable situations where current AI might struggle. Some reports even go so far as to say it's more intelligent than AI in that specific adaptive sense.
More intelligent, that's a bold claim.
It is, but it highlights that difference in how it learns. And this fits into a bigger picture, doesn't it? You see reports about China pushing hard on AI-powered robotics for manufacturing humanoid robots in factories, for example.
Yeah, we've covered some of that.
Well, this biologically inspired computing, this Wetware approach, it kind of feeds into that broader ambition, pushing towards maybe a new kind of intelligence.
So, okay, bringing it back to you, the listener, if this tech really takes off, moves beyond the lab, what's the big deal? Why should you care about these tiny blobs of brain cells controlling robots?
Well, the potential impact, it's vast. It could genuinely revolutionize several huge fields. Take medicine, for example. We could be looking at much more advanced BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, that don't just assist, but maybe even repair neurological damage someday.
Repair damage, like from stroke or injury.
That's the long-term hope. And imagine using personalized organoids derived from your stem cells to test drugs for neurological conditions. Much more accurate, tailored treatments.
That would be incredible. What about computing itself?
That's another major area. A move away from silicon, potentially, towards these super energy-efficient biocomputers. They'd store memories biologically using far less power. Think about greener data centers, completely new ways of processing information.
And robotics. Beyond folding T-shirts.
Oh, definitely. Smarter, truly adaptive robots. For tasks too dangerous or complex for current machines or humans, search and rescue in disaster zones, maybe genuinely helpful elder care robots handling hazardous materials, and crucially, these robots could mature and improve over their operational life, learning from experience, not just code updates.
Like raising a robot?
Sort of. And then there's the idea of hybrid intelligence, blending that biological, human-like cognition with machine speed and precision. Imagine that for complex space missions or running incredibly advanced AI servers that can adapt in ways we can't yet fully grasp.
The potential seems almost limitless, but there's always a but, isn't there? What are the roadblocks? This can't be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right to bring that up. This is still very much early-stage lab work. There are huge practical hurdles. These organoids are living things.
Right.
They need constant, precise conditions.
Yeah.
Nutrients, temperature, protection from germs.
They're delicate.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Getting them to mature reliably, keeping them supplied with nutrients long-term, ensuring they don't, die or malfunction. These are major challenges before you could even think about deploying them widely.
Okay, which leads us directly into the ethical minefield, the whole Black Mirror aspect we mentioned, because it is living human tissue, essentially, controlling machines. It needs care. This feels different.
It absolutely is different. And this really raises an important question, perhaps the most important question. The ethics.
Yeah.
Because they're derived from human stem cells, because they require this biological care, the ethical dimension is front and center.
So what are the biggest red flags the sources are pointing to?
Well, the number one concern, the one that comes up again and again, is consciousness and rights. As these organoids and the systems they control become more complex, could they develop some form of awareness, sentience?
That's the big one.
It really is. And if they did, what would that mean? Would switching off a robot powered by a sentient or near-sentient organoid be akin to killing something?
Wow. Heavy stuff.
Incredibly heavy. Experts are genuinely debating this. Is testing on these organoids ethically justifiable? How does it compare to animal testing, especially since the cells are human-derived? Where do we draw that line?
It blurs the line between machine and life in a really profound way. Are there other major concerns beyond consciousness?
Oh, yes. Plenty of practical and societal ones, too. Think about reliability. These are biological systems. What if the organoids degrade unexpectedly, or mutate, or get infected?
Yeah.
Could lead to totally unpredictable robot behavior.
Malfunctions could be?
Where potentially dangerous, even. And then there's the resource cost. Scaling this up, cultivating billions of organoids. That needs huge specialized labs and could create a lot of biological waste.
And security. Hacking a brain-robot interface.
Nightmare scenario, right? A living robot turned malicious. Or leaking sensitive biological data derived from the stem cell source. Huge security risks.
What about jobs if these adaptive robots become common?
That's a massive societal concern, societal disruption. If they succeed on a large scale, they could automate jobs currently safe from automation manufacturing, yes, but maybe also healthcare roles, logistics, analysis.
Widening inequality.
Potentially, yes. If the tech is controlled by a few wealthy companies or nations, and then there's the risk of misuse. Weaponized drones that learn like humans but have no empathy. Autonomous surveillance systems that constantly adapt and evolve. It's pretty terrifying to consider.
Are there environmental or, hidden health costs, too?
Potentially. Mass production needs resources, energy-intensive labs. What's the carbon footprint? And are there unforeseen health risks if these organoids developed unexpected biological traits? We just don't know the long-term effects yet.
It really is an incredible paradox, isn't it? This immense potential for good, fixing brains, revolutionizing computing right alongside these really serious, almost existential risks and ethical dilemmas.
It demands incredibly careful thought and, frankly, robust regulation before the technology gets too far ahead of our ability to manage it responsibly.
Absolutely. Which brings us to our final thought for you today. As you mull over all this, for you, what's the scariest downside of this technology if it succeeds? Is it the deep ethical questions about consciousness and what it means to be alive? Is it the more immediate societal impact, like widespread job loss? Or is it something else entirely, maybe that potential for misuse we just touched on? Lots to think about. We encourage you to stay curious, keep exploring these complex intersections of tech and humanity, and we'll dive deeper into another fascinating topic next time here on Nexus.